cameras or the individual camera?
You're gonna go,
Wide?
yeah, go to me first, and then when you introduce everybody, then,
Well, they're gonna introduce themselves.
All right.
okay.
So before this happens, everybody from the pink hoodie over. This is your camera. If you're
Yeah.
talking to the
Yeah.
camera, everybody. Guys, are you ready?
Introducing, you can go to the.
Yep, we're live now.
You can look at me, but
Okay.
everybody look at,
All right, cool.
ready?
Hey,
Hold it. Cameras on, cameras on, cameras on.
hey everyone, welcome to Keeping Up with the Chaldeans. We're here doing a cannabis panel. We have a lot of individuals with a lot of knowledge that are gonna help you out with any questions you may have, anything within the industry. Junior's gonna say a few words and then we're gonna kick it off.
So just to let you know, because of the growing industry in Michigan and how hot it is, we figured the best way to do it to get you guys going with all this was to give you the blueprint from beginning to the end. We just figured there's so much right now going on in the market, and it's the hottest thing with what's going on in business last year. This could be the new escape for many people who have lost their jobs or their businesses and want to get into this field. So what we're gonna do is we got this great group of guests over here from my left to my right here. And what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna take our first three guests and we're gonna go ahead and let them introduce themselves, explain to you all what each one of them do, how they can be found, and how they got into it themselves in the industry. Once we get done with these three gentlemen, Anthony and I will open up a Q&A, and we encourage you guys to allow us to get questions from you so we can ask the panel. It's pretty much a free session right now to be able to do this. We did get graced with Wilson Sarkis Films for this production, so he was able to give us the opportunity to do this Facebook Live on a very, very professional level. That's what we're here for, to also give you professional teams like this to be able to get on board with. We'll start off with Shaun Mansour, would be the first guest here to appear. And Shaun is from the legal side of it, and we're gonna go ahead and let him introduce himself and then get into briefing us about you and what you do.
Okay, thank you, Junior. Thank you, Anthony, for having us. My name is Shaun Mansour. I'm an attorney in the cannabis space. My office is in Clinton Township, and I do licensing, business advising, and things of that nature in cannabis. You can visit my website at mansourlegal.com. You can look me up on Instagram, and I'm sure we'll be posting our information after the show. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.
Simon, you're up.
Good. Thanks for having me, Junior, Anthony, and the colleagues here on the panel. My name is Simon Gumma. I'm a CPA located in Troy. I've been in the cannabis space for a number of years, about 4 or 5 years right now, and I provide tax, accounting, and advisory services in this space. You could engage with someone like me early on when it comes to your pre-qualification with an attorney, to do your CPA attestation, and also with corporate structuring. And then once you're licensed, we could also help you with your tax and accounting needs. I'm located in Troy, and I'm located at 888 West Big Beaver, Suite 300.
Jared?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Anthony, JB, and good seeing so many familiar faces and friends in the industry. My name is Harry Barash. I'm with EXP Realty. I specialize in cannabis real estate in the Michigan market. I've been in the commercial real estate industry for about 20 plus years, and just started transitioning my business into cannabis, and finally doing it exclusively about a year ago. And some of you may know me from a Facebook group called Michigan Cannabis Professionals, and many of these people here are also a member of that group. So that's also what I do. But thanks for having me, guys.
How can people find you?
They can find me harrybarish@gmail.com, or they can reach out to me on Facebook.
Okay.
Harry Barish.
Cool. So before we open up to questions, since that did kind of go pretty quick, let's go across the pond here and have John introduce his team.
Hello, my name is Joe Gumma from Gumma Group. My brother Joe, We are a full-service design build firm. We've been doing it for over 25 plus years. We do construction, we do design, and we've been in the cannabis industry for approximately 5.5 years now, since it all started here in Michigan. We can take your building and turn it into any type of cannabis space that you're in, whether it's processing, provisioning, cultivation, safety transport, safety compliance. We're involved in all the spaces of cannabis. It's been pretty fun. We're learning a lot still these days with everybody's different techniques. And you can, our office is in West Bloomfield, gummagroup.net. You can find us, I'm sure one of the guys will have a link here.
What's your email?
Email is john@Gumma, G-U-M as in Mary, M as in Mary, group.net. And I just want to say thank you for inviting us, Anthony and Joe, so Junior, we can thank you guys for inviting us here, and we'd like to help with any questions that anybody may have.
Joe, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, you know, I'm mostly in the early stages of design with John, but I'm mostly also in the field too. I just love the construction side of it. There's a lot of industry standards, but like John was saying, every cultivator is different, and every grow style is different to each. So in the construction field, everything changes on the fly. Some cultivators don't see things on paper, but once they're on site, they see everything as a whole. And then, you know, things change on the fly. You got to go back to design change and go back and forth. But in the construction field, everything moves fast with every trade. You got to make sure you on schedule and, you know, follow up with everything, see what the owner likes, make sure everything's good with the blueprints, good with the design, good with everything, with the city, with the state as well. Because not dealing with just city, you also deal with state inspections with Laura. It's just a lot more involved than a typical commercial building.
Cool. Tommy, why don't you jump in there?
Hi, my name is Tommy Kemennu. I'm with Low Voltage Designs, and so we're a low voltage company based in West Bloomfield, and we specialize in security, card access, automation, speakers, IT, networking, alarm, and audio-video monitoring as well. We've been in the cannabis space since like probably 15 years now, since it started out, and we've been doing low voltage for about 17 years now. We're licensed, we're insured, and we're certified, and we have all the background and everything to meet the requirements. Thank you for having me, Anthony Jr.
Did you let them know where to find you?
Yeah, we're located in West Bloomfield, and then our website is lowvoltagedesigns.net, and my email is thomas@lowvoltagedesigns.net.
Great. Next up, we've got Charlene, so you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do?
Hi everybody, my name is Charlene Raikany and I'm another CPA, and I am a freelance controller. I handle all of your day-to-day. I'm very involved. I make sure your financials are up to date. I make sure to have you ready for your audits. Anything that a controller would do, I like to perform. I'm involved all the time. So if you're looking for someone to help you every single day, send you financials, information weekly, that's why you would reach out to me. I'm located in Troy as well, and my email address is Charlene with a C @bookedandbalance.com, and it's just an N, not the actual letter and. Thank you guys.
All right, so thank you all for introducing yourselves. Junior's not just a host of Keeping Up with Chaldeans, he also has a garden supply.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, buddy?
So we're a little small part of the group, I say. I mean, in a joking sense, but we also help with the planning. We work with these two type of gentlemen in the industry. We get you set up with our grow store has the ability to give you like schematics, layouts, understanding your water, understanding everything that has to do with their lighting, atmosphere, environment, all that. So we can give you hands-on with that. We're very competitive. I mean, even if you think you can go direct, we'd like you to go through it, because at the end of the day, you'll see that we still will be less expensive than going direct with these companies, and we'll be there to help you out. Support is huge. We give it, I'm not going to say it either way, but we're retail owners, so the way we do retail, we handle it well. On top of that, we can do deliveries to anywhere at any time. And we can take any type of order on, a small or large right now. Along with me doing that as well in this group right here, we do have Anthony Toma himself, and Anthony has
BCS Epoxy. It's a epoxy flooring company. If anyone wants to redo their floor or get a new floor or putting in a new floor, give us a shout. We'll come out and give you a bid. All you have to do is text me an address and square footage, what you're looking for, and we'll set up a date and time for us to come out and check it out. It's 248-918-1129.
Cool. So to understand why we made up the panel the way we did here today, and since everybody was introduced, now we're going to go back and so you guys can understand how they get the job done, what they need from individuals that come to them, how long process takes for what they each do for you in this, how each is adaptive to one another in this whole group, where one relies on to the other and the other passes on to the other. So starting off with Shaun, to say as an attorney, that's your first step that you've got to take no matter what. So when you go to see him, we're gonna take this as if Jane or John Doe just walked in and needed the whole basic step from beginning to the end. That way, by the time you're done with this video, you're gonna have a full understanding how to be able to go ahead and get on with the whole program. So Shaun, let's walk them through your steps as a whole newbie coming in, and then we'll take it from there, and how you two tie in with one another, when the two of you are done, how it gets to him, and then we'll go Q&A, and then we'll take it to the rest of the group, how they complete the whole job. So if you want to fire up, just like we did on the interview in the past, just to give them an understanding.
Sure, absolutely, thank you. So typically, if I get a new client that comes to me that knows nothing about the space at all, the first thing I want to do is educate them about the 3 separate laws. We have the MMA, the caregiver laws, we have the medical marijuana laws, and then we have the recreational laws. So I give them a laydown of the land, have them understand exactly that these are 3 separate laws, and once they get that understanding, I get an idea of what they're looking for out of the industry, right? So I begin to ask the client a number of questions, whether they're looking for a provisioning center, which is the dispensary, or if they're looking for a cultivation center, if they're looking for processing, or whatever that may be, I'm able to guide them in that direction. Once we figure out which license type they want to apply for, what they'll be applying for is a pre-qualification. Most people think it's a license. So I want to apply for a license. You can't apply for a license. You apply to get pre-qualified by the state. To allow you to go get a building in municipality and get that licensed, essentially. Before we even get to that point, I would in fact advise the client to contact a guy like Simon to prepare something called the CPA attestation. On the medical side, every license requires you to be worth a certain amount. And it's up to Simon to figure that out and put that on a form essentially for the state. And Simon puts his, he'll get into that for you, but Simon essentially verifies that those funds are there, and once the client obtains that CPA attestation, brings it back to me, I'm able to complete the rest of the application process for them. Once you've received the pre-qualification from the state, the next process is to now work with the municipality in obtaining a building. That's where you get your architects involved. That's where you get your design team involved and your builders.
Before we get to that, I mean to skip over you, Harry.
You got to get a real estate agent involved to help locate the property.
So a question for you.
Sure.
I know in the beginning it was extremely tough to go through a lot of the hurdles, especially with financials and everything. How is that at this point in time, and have they eased back a bit since they've broken up the former board that was through the state of Michigan? And time frame, how long do they expect to start with you and be ready to be out with the pre-qual?
Okay. I'm going to touch up on it a bit, and then let Simon take it over.
Sure.
On the medical side, you need to be worth a certain amount per license type. And when you get to see me, I'll tell you exactly how much you need to be worth for that specific license type. On the recreational side, there's no capitalization requirement. So anybody can apply for a recreational license without needing that capitalization requirement.
Which is standard what? Capitalization average is what? Like you need to be worth or have
So
a value of?
you need to be worth, let's just pick the dispensary license, because most people like to apply for the dispensary license. You got to be worth $300,000.
Okay.
You might hear that number and think,
oh, I don't have $300,000.
Right.
And to get to that, Simon, what can the clients do to get to that number without having to have $300,000 in their bank account?
Sure. So, in explaining the CPA attestation requirement,
Correct.
And not to correct you, but it's,
Sure, you should correct,
it's
please.
really not necessarily your worth, but you have to have a certain amount of capitalization. It doesn't necessarily indicate what you're worth. So for the provisioning center license, it's $300,000. However, only 25% of that has to be liquid. So 25% of $300,000 is $75,000. I did my math right. I don't know. So if you apply for other licenses, then it goes up from there. But
as of June 22nd, there were some new rulings that came out to actually streamline the CPA attestation to only attest or capitalize the most expensive license. So we have a lot of applicants that are applying for stack licenses or several other licenses. Like you see people adding the provisioning center with the processing and a grow license. So that requires a different set of capitalization rules, but it comes down to the most expensive license for that requirement. But something else I like to do with the attorneys is corporate structuring. So when Shaun is compiling your documents for the application, we do want to have your corporate structure in order as well, because that will dictate how you're going to operate once you have this license. And then eventually later on, if you're expanding and you're growing, no pun intended, or maybe if you end up selling. So all these things set up early on will have an advantage for you later on if you end up changing or selling or expanding. So having the structure early on can minimize maybe some tax consequences, bringing on partners later. We see a lot of debt to equity type arrangements, so it's important to engage with an attorney and a CPA early on to set all that up for you.
So just for a second, guys to the camera team, we're just getting that we're getting some echoing right now while we're on, is it possible?
Anyone hearing an echo?
If it's, so everybody's phone's off anyway, so usually it would be feedback coming in from your own. Be just a moment, folks. Right now, we're just getting it figured out, so let's
So we're gonna fight through the technical difficulties,
Yeah.
folks.
Can I piggyback off something that Simon was saying?
Sure.
Yeah.
John, I think this is important because this is a huge benefit to a number of my applicants, or a number of my clients who are applicants. A lot of people don't have the funds at all, or don't have the assets. You want to speak on money lenders a little bit?
Sure. So, and then that's a great point. So I'm glad you picked up on that. If you don't have the assets in terms of the capitalization requirement, you could have a person lend you the assets or pledge the funds over to your applicant entity and essentially loan that money to you. Again, they still have to meet the liquidity requirement, but if someone has real estate valuation, we could use real estate towards the valuation. We could use liquid assets, stock accounts, other liquid type investments can work. So you could have someone essentially again lend you the money. Shaun will draft the lender agreement documents, the statement of money lender forms. Things have to be notarized and such. So if you don't have the capitalization requirement met personally, you definitely can have someone else provide that to you, and that all will be documented in the application.
Absolutely.
now that the lenders themselves, who do they for that part of that attestation? They're not, if they're showing 250, they're not on the hook anything with license or with money at that time. It's just showing that if this person who's the license holder needs that money to be used, they would be willing to back them up or give that money for them to be able to get the job done.
Right, so if you look at, and I'm not an attorney, but
Yeah.
I can speak the language, I don't write the language, but there's a promissory note.
Right.
And there's a line of credit agreement, so they may do the same thing, but they mean different things.
Okay.
So you want to be careful on how you leverage or how you write up those documents. So a promissory note literally means you're going to lend this money. A line of credit agreement means you're going to make this money available.
Got you.
So you do want to consider the different options. And one will work better than the other depending on your needs and on the structuring and the organization itself.
Sure.
And the needs.
Now, let's say with the two of you working hand in hand with that to get that job accomplished, like I said in the beginning, it was a little bit longer. What do you think average time is taking right now to start with you two? Because, you know, people get very anxious quick in this.
What do you mean start with what?
Once they start with you, the application process and get it, how long before pre-qual usually is? Because in the beginning, it was taking even up to a year and a half for some people.
Yeah.
Now what's the average time?
Yeah, it's not like that anymore, but I always tell clients, I'm on your time. So I give you a laundry list of items that I need you to return back to our office.
Mhm.
If it takes you 4 weeks to get that back to us, we lost 4 weeks. If it takes you a week to get it back to us, we're submitting that application as soon as we get all that stuff and we can compile it. With the state, we can't control the time frame that the state shoots the applications back out to us for, but what we've been noticing is about I don't know if you got you guys, but 60 to 90 days is looking like right now.
Oh, wow, big
Pre-corona, it was 30 to 45 days. It was
Yeah.
great. The background checks were coming in very quickly, and we were able to get those done. But after Corona, especially after the holidays, it's about 2 to 3 months right now.
Okay.
That's the time frame you're looking at. If we submit the application today, within 90 days, you should have an answer on your.
And that's a huge improvement from before. when it
Huge
was
improvement,
before.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the board would take a
Yeah.
year to a year and a half at times, and there was a lot of denials in the beginning, a lot of major ones. So once they get over the hump, they're done with you guys, you've got them going, that's when we get Mr. Barash over here involved?
Oh,
Oh.
they'll never be done with us.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, no,
all
they'll
right,
never be
good, that's
done
good
with
to
us.
know, okay,
That's
all
just
right.
the pre-qual.
All right.
It's just the
Okay.
beginning. It's
Okay.
just the beginning to everything, essentially.
Okay.
So if someone comes to someone like myself and wants a pre-qual,
Mhm.
as soon as I get that application submitted to the state and I
Yep.
start communicating with the state,
Mhm.
it's up to the client. When they have that pre-qual, it lasts for 2 years. If you want to get a head start, which I advise most people do, call a guy like Harry right away and say, you know, I'm an applicant, I'm looking for a piece of property, give him the region that you're looking in, let him know what license type you're looking for. Harry knows enough about the space to know that if you're looking for a Class C cultivation facility, he's probably going to advise you on how much square footage you need. And he's also going to make sure your property's within the zone, right, Harry? I'll let you
Absolutely,
piggyback
yeah.
on that and talk about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, when, you know, when prospects come to me, it's very, you know, it's very important to ask, you know, if they've met with an attorney or working on their licensing, their pre-qualifications, their financials, you know, as it pertains to real estate, you know, since there's really no financing in this industry, are they cash buyers? Do they have the ability to cash out a real estate transaction and not ask for a land contract? Many, you know, more and more owners are doing deals on land contracts. And of course, there's always just straight, you know, traditional leases. So it's important to find out, you know, what their appetite is, what their, what kind of range they have of making transactions, how flexible they are with their terms, what their expectations are, what their, you know, geographic parameters are, what license type, you know, and obviously there's, you know, there's several different parts of the real estate, you know, process. There's you know, when a community opts in, and, you know, there's a frenzy of, you know, people tying, you know, and actually even before that, many of the sites have already been tied up. So it's kind of a whole different part of the industry that, you know, you really have to be on top of these municipalities. You really have to be on top of, you know, relationships with attorneys, lobbyists, consultants that are all, you know, talking to these municipalities before any of the information becomes public. And once it kind of becomes public, then, you know, that's when really the, you know, the frenzy starts. But, so there's that portion, and there's the flippers, you know, people that want to tie up property and flip it, you know, for a spread, which, you know, many people have done in this industry, and people do that exclusively in this industry. So that's kind of slowing down, since people aren't paying the crazy prices that they were a couple of years ago. And quite frankly, a lot of the, you know, there's a lot of our industry that's, you know, that's kind of spoken for in terms of people that are under development and, you know, about to open, just beginning to, you know, their construction, that haven't come online yet, that are, you know, really going to create a lot more, you know, product and real estate and services that we all provide. So the industry's, you know, as Director Brisboe says, is a, you know, estimated to be a $3 billion industry. And I think at the end of
In Michigan?
2020, in Michigan retail sales. So at the end of 2020, I think we just came up short of $1 billion. So, you know, flower, obviously, as I think everybody knows, the market, you know, the flower prices have dropped considerably just in the last, you know, 4 to 6 months, which have a direct correlation with the price and valuation of real estate, especially cultivation. As you know, as many people know, that you know, medical, there's kind of an excess of property, an excess of flower these days. So, but you know, it's hard to pace the industry. It's hard to, you know, open up, you know, more provisioning centers so that there's less supply it's just, whoever comes online, for, first one to the finish line wins, and they just open their doors. But, and then, there's people that are also, there's places that have failed and that have closed, mostly, retail, and, and then there's places that are ongoing businesses that are selling, so that's another part of the real estate industry. I'm kind of a chameleon, I kind of wear a lot of different hats with running a Facebook group and all the crazy requests that I hear and come across, and
Tell us about some of those.
yeah.
Give us one of your
yeah,
funniest
if you guys
crazy
want to
ones.
see an ambulance pull up here,
Yeah.
somebody will.
Did you speak
run
on
through
any of
this.
you spoke on the buyer side, what about the seller side?
Yeah, I mean,
Is there much of that? Like, what would your advice be to somebody sitting on a piece of property right now?
I mean, it obviously, there's a number of municipalities that have opted in. There's, most of the provisioning centers are pretty much, spoken for. Some might be for sale, that type of thing, but, there's very rarely a municipality that has opted in for, let's just say, 6 provisioning centers, and not all 6 have opened. There are some, but not that many. So,
So how would I price a piece of property if I own one?
to put it on the market?
To put on the market, yeah.
I mean, comps are, comps are weird now. Is it a property that is,
There's a
just opting in?
A lot of variables.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it a municipality that just opted in, and they're only gonna approve, 4 dispensaries, and it's a highly desirable municipality like, Oakland County, Wayne County, Macomb County, and now Livingston County, so is
You
it
work
in
all over Michigan?
I work pretty much all over Michigan, yeah. I mean, wherever work.
And if I can piggyback off that question, from an application maker standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
I've learned this over the last couple of years. It used to be the thought process was, whoever's gonna offer me the most for my building, I'm selling, of course. That's not the case.
Right.
What we've all learned is, you wanna choose not only the best offer, but the best offer from the best applicant.
Position, yeah.
So the person who's in the position to actually win that application.
Mhm.
If a municipality, like Harry said, is offering 6 licenses,
Sure.
you got 50 different applicants, and you
Yeah.
got 20 people, you're the seller of a building that's in a zone, you want nothing to do with the space, you just want to sell your building and be out of there, right?
Yep.
It's not as simple as what's the best offer.
Yep.
You really want to interview these buyers, because it's the buyer that's going to be successful with that municipality that's actually going to pay you for that building.
Right.
And if that property owner isn't aware of the industry and who the players are and what their reputation's like, and their credibility in the industry, and obviously we help procure these parties, and we help put parties together, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely a very important part of the process.
I think it's just as important for a seller who's not in the cannabis space to
Yeah.
consult with a cannabis attorney or another professional.
Sure.
Because just so they know how to sell this building, what to sell it for, who to sell it to, what questions to ask,
Plus-
Who not to sell it to.
who not to sell it to.
There's also a big hurdle. You can't get bank loans. So whatever it is that somebody that you're selling to has to be ready to just cash that whole deal out. There's nothing that they're gonna be getting that's gonna be, coming in from that, so.
Yeah.
Let's see what John's
Junior, I
gonna
wanted to
say.
clarify something, because we sort of got into properties right after pre-quals, and I just want to make the audience completely aware that the pre-qualification is not location-based. When you run an application to the state for a pre-qualification, it's simply based on the entity that you're applying for or the individual. The property does not matter at this point. It's after you submit that and either receive the pre-qualification or during the process, the pending process, that you would hire someone like Harry to go find a property. I hope we didn't convolute the issue. What we're talking about with a municipality is a completely separate application you would submit to that city. That's something I did want to touch on, and John and Joe can also talk about it.
Yeah, so once I kind of start asking the questions, obviously, once you tie a piece of property up, obviously you're gonna have to, get your team involved at that point and hire all your architects, your construction folks, environmental survey, all that stuff, and start, putting, spending money and figuring out what you have there. A big component of understanding, some of the things that might slip through the cracks is number one, how long it's going to take for power to get to the site and how much you can get to the site. You know, that tends to delay deals. It tends to bring on a much bigger ticket, unforeseen cost that you might not have budgeted for.
Yep.
So,
I want to touch on your delay comment. Like, let's go back to you two for a second. Before even getting to Harry, at this point, there is some delays that can be caused by the applicant because of things either not submitted. Can you inform the audience stuff that they can get prepared or not bring to the table to not slow the process down, or things that you've seen that they can correct prior to even seeing you guys? Is there stuff between the two of you that they need to know and prepare for beforehand that won't put a hurdle or any roadblock when it comes time for this?
I'll let Simon touch on the financials, but from
Law standpoint.
From a legal standpoint, I usually spend about 10 or 15 minutes interviewing the client. I'll ask you a series of questions about your criminal history, your financial history.
Are any of them blocking them right now? Like criminal history before, a joint was able to get you kicked off from the
Not
board
anymore,
before.
no.
That's what I was saying. So like anything, okay.
Now it's preferred, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, it's crazy. What do
there's
you mean?
something called,
Just as a
The
mutual
social
friend, we have
equity.
somebody who was screaming. We had a mutual friend that he was screaming and saying, "Guys, next year when I do the application, we're going to join under mine." I said, "You're a felon. How did you get it?" He said, "No, you don't get it. They're giving it to me cheaper." I said, "What?" I said,
so what Junior's talking about, everyone, the
that
state
crazy?
allows for a social equity application. If you're a felon, if you're situated in a social equity, a municipality that's deemed under the social equity rules, and something of that nature essentially. For most of our clients, it's the felonies, the marijuana felonies, will actually give you a discount on the application, a 40% discount, if the state approves it. So that's true. It's the
Crazy.
things that were hurting people in the past.
Yep.
It's actually beneficial to them now.
Yep.
Not everybody meets those requirements, but if they do, it's a huge benefit. It's 40% out of your, not only of your application fee, but of your yearly licensing fees and your renewals and that as well. So it's great.
And from a financial perspective, I usually give clients a checklist of items that I would need to perform the CPA attestation. So that's engaging me early on. And some of the things the attorney may provide, such as the entity name, the owner's information, but most of it will come from the client, such as banking information, property tax bills, appraisals, loan documents, things of that nature. And then I take that information, those are part of my work papers, and I prepare the CPA attestation. So I have to support the report based on this information that was provided by the attorney or the client.
And Junior, your taxes have to be paid, or you have to be on a payment plan. They can't just be outstanding. IRS has to sign a certain form. They won't sign off on that form unless you have a payment plan or your taxes are paid.
Got you. And then once those hurdles are all accomplished, they're past that point of you guys and everything, just for the beginning.
That's for the pre-qualification.
Yeah, for the
but
pre-qual.
Before they even get into their work, I think
Yeah.
we should talk about the city applications, because that'll make the audience more aware and understanding of why we do city applications.
Yep, so it goes back, like you said, you're not done just by doing the pre-qual, there's more to it, and that goes to city
So
app.
say they've hired Harry.
Yep.
Harry finds them a property in a zone.
Yep.
They now call us back and say, we've identified this property, we've put an offer on it, we have a purchase agreement, it's contingent on us getting a license. What's next? The next step is, we've got to submit an application with that municipality. Every city has different applications, and I'm sure all these guys will tell you that. Some city applications are this small, some city applications are this large, okay? The city application is more geared to the property and the construction than it is to the individual that has already been background checked by the state. You understand? So with the property, that's where these guys start to get involved, and that's where you guys can jump in and talk about some of the things that, like, when I do a city application, I work hand in hand with an architect and a builder. We do just as much, if not, they do more work on that application than I do.
So this whole thing, that's why we're put it together, because of how symbiotic it is and how you guys are passing the plays back and forth to one another. So.
Can I add to that, Junior?
Of course,
Sorry,
yeah, Flo.
So as Shaun alluded to, every city is different. So some municipalities actually require some kind of financial pro formas or financial projections.
Okay.
Some cities don't, but a handful of cities do, so they're going to engage a CPA again. I've done dozens of these where we're doing 3- and 5-year projections, and I'm waiting on, or not I'm waiting, but I'm being provided with cost estimates from the architect that that we could identify, hey, here's how much the applicant is gonna spend on the building, and how much on improvements, how much on furnitures and fixtures and equipment. I document all of that and provide the attorney to supplement the application with this financial projection. And again, it's gonna have real estate information, it's gonna have construction costs, because some of these competitive applications, the municipality wants to see how much is being reinvested into the city. So if you have blighted property, that's probably a plus. But if you're converting an existing thriving business, the city might not want that change. So it really depends. You gotta work with the real estate agent, you have to work with the attorney to determine how winnable your application is, if it's a competitive application.
Or how winnable the site is, the
Right,
site,
yeah.
scores, the sites score themselves for the most part, I mean, I just heard where a application was docked 8 points because the site was not contaminated. And, I mean, go figure, the site has to be contaminated.
That's hilarious.
So all these weird situations can come up, and really you have to focus on what site gives you the best probability of passing based on the features of the site. You want to get the most, like Simon said, the most dilapidated property. Hopefully it's got environmental issues, and you probably want to, show the city that you're going to, give back, and whether it's through donation or whether it's through building a park or whatever the case may be. From a real estate standpoint, obviously we get paid when we successfully complete a transaction. So who we are representing is very important because there's a lot of losers, unfortunately, and there's only a handful of winners, in a particular municipality until you kind of start the whole process over again. But in cultivation, there's many municipalities that have no cap on cultivation. So long as obviously it's a qualifying site, and there's also a lot of opportunities for processors, but safety compliance and testing is probably the very definitely the fewest license holders. So there's really not that many new requirements for those types of businesses. Obviously it's very important for them to have an understanding of the construction process, and it's I have an opportunity to work alongside share office space with John and Joe over here, so I'm very fortunate to be able to walk down the office and ask questions about architecture and construction, and it's very important. These guys play a huge role in the next, once a person has a property under contract, you got to get started with plans, and that's where these guys come in and just kind of get it to the next level.
Well, let's do this. So we were going to open to Q&A. We definitely, in this, being in essence, you guys still have quite of a taboo industry. Some people may be a little timid to ask right now. They'll get in touch with you guys after. So rather than going into the Q&As or asking that, we pretty much are getting it from you guys. We're going to flow into these two gentlemen right now. These are the Gumma brothers. Both go hand in hand with each other. We can start with this gentleman here first. He is the first step after Harry to come into play. You got to give him a ring to get your architect. Want to introduce yourself back up, and let people know how and what and where you are today with this industry.
Before we go to there, I just want to point out one key factor here that they may have missed is sometimes, most time, a lot of municipalities are in litigation. So when you go to Harry to get your property under agreement and you have X amount of days to execute, some cities are a year and a half, 2 years later to this day, they still haven't even awarded the winners. So you have to consider your carrying cost of paying for that monthly, yearly, whatever the property may require for you just to lock up the property prior to you receiving your approvals. That's really important.
Absolutely,
that could be a deal breaker. It's very
Yeah, I mean,
expensive.
a lot of municipalities are getting sued, and it's obviously it's affecting all different license types in some cases, and
What's reasoning usually behind that, to put that pause in? And is that something like you'd go back to Shaun and say, I need you now to come in and give me a hand and we gotta fight the city?
Shaun
or
is
what-
going to, sorry for interrupting, but yeah, Shaun can also get involved with the city, talk to the city attorneys, but it's mainly when they limit the amount of licenses that they are issuing for provisioning centers. Some cities, they say, we're only going to issue 15, then you get 50, like they said here, you get 50 applicants, and then now the city has to go through 50 applicants and pick out the best 15, and they point, it's either merit-based or it's a point-based system.
Or lottery.
A lottery,
Right.
and then I'm a sore loser,
Or first
so
come,
I'm going to
first
sue
serve.
the city,
Yeah.
and now I'm going to tie this whole process up until I solve my litigation with the city or my client or their clients, and then it's a big mess, because now they say, okay, we're only allowed 15. We have 50 plus applicants. How do they determine who is the best? Sometimes they have outside consultants scoring them, sometimes just to literally pick out of a hat in a lottery. So that's a real major difficulty of carrying cost for our clients. And people say they just try to wear you out and see how much you can afford it. These guys are not going away. They have a lot of money committed in the purchase, with the legal, with the accounting, with architects, with the low voltage. They've already started their roles, hoping to get granted this license we call the golden ticket. So that is one of our biggest problems. And like I said, a lot of municipalities are still in litigation 2 years later. And so now people are paying on a building that is vacant, not been used, but they're just paying the landlord until they get to be, whether they're a winner or a loser.
You and I have talked a few times in the last, especially with getting geared for this. Number one thing we always say, I say to you, I say to Harry, this is the biggest hurry up and wait industry that I've ever encountered. Right? Everything you just...
Absolutely.
You guys need everything right now because the state's calling you. We get it to you after quickly getting it. Then it's like slow back down because of this right here and other technicalities that come into
You gotta
play.
understand, this is still a new industry. It's still federally illegal. It's still a Schedule I drug. There's no research, there's no banking. And all the fees are high, all the, services are high. The industry is going through a correction right now where I think it's going to be pretty exposed that there's going to be a lot of failures coming up here in the next 12 to 18 months because you can't it's very hard to predict and put together a pro forma or a business model because there's just so many variables.
Doesn't exist.
Nobody could have predicted that the price of flour would have fell 50% in the last 4 or 5 months. And imagine, and if you're trying to get in the game today, and you want to tie up a site, especially if it's cultivation, and by the time you tie up the site, go through your due diligence, close on the property, get all your plans approved, do your construction. Obviously, cultivation is the most intense, sophisticated, construction, and there's a lot of moving parts, and it's very expensive, so it's usually not done quick. So you have to take all that into consideration because you might not be done for 12 to 18 months, and you have to account for, an adjustment. And but unfortunately, what you're doing is you're still paying today's cost in construction and in labor and in land cost. So it's you're kind of getting double whammied almost.
Yeah.
So you really it's going to be the industry's going to have to tighten up. Real estate prices are coming down, which is I think they should. Which directly again correlates relates to the price of flour. But the price of flour needs to come down because look, the industry did $1 billion selling flour at $3,000 to $5,000 a pound. So if the industry is going to get to $3 billion and the price is already half right now, it's not going to triple. There has to be quadruple of the number of consumers because it's going to be at a reduced price.
Yeah, yes and no. Everything can plateau, but see, the hardship that I see even being inside the store, because I have to deal with that conversation day in and day out, you know, and just not to veer off from, you know, these guys doing architect and all that, we're talking about that, but it's just like a regular business, and that's the perception that people have to understand. So the viewers that we've got on here that are watching, a lot of them were your standard underground basement growers. They were the guys that are doing the caregiver program. We're here to elevate you out of that, get your mind state out of that, get you up to par with these kind of people and bring you to that level. You can't think, oh my God, here it is, it's Croptober, and then everything's went down here. That's out of the question. There's no such thing. You guys have to look at it just like my business doesn't have 12 months of steady business every single month. I go through an increase and decrease. So does this industry. So does anything else, like after the holiday seasons and so forth. So to not veer off on that, it's still got a viable potential.
Absolutely.
You said the key thing.
The industry is still very profitable at these prices. That's the, you know, that's
well, I want to touch on what you said. You said first round of failures hasn't hit yet.
Right.
That shows you how wide open this gap is, because we're now already 3 years young into this industry, and we haven't even hit our first round of failures yet, which means then I can pick it up on the low, do what we got to do, and then the next guy gets the opportunity to do it better.
And yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So to get to you, so you get past the point, right, John? You guys are past the point. You now are there. I do need you. And what do I do from here? What do you need from us?
Yeah, so Harry and I talk a lot. Like we said, we're in the same office. We'll say, hey, did you hear who's opting in? And then all of a sudden we have clients that call us. There's go-to clients. They'll start calling Harry and say, hey, I heard the city's opting in. The city's opting in. He finds a property. He locks it up, then comes to us, and then we do what they call the application drawings to get you approved after you are done with the CPA and done with your legal pre-quals, and then we take over. We do surveys, because some cities are 500 feet away from the city, from a school, a place of worship, a playground. Some are thousands, so we have several surveys we do. Then we send the crew out, and they do a field measurement of the building, measure it out. Then we create your space. From there, we design it, whether it's a provisioning center or whatever it is in the space. And along with Tommy here, he provides us with the security plans and all the low voltage. Then we go back to our realtor, our CPA, and our legal, and everybody puts the package together. And like Shaun says, some packages are a few inches thick, binders thick, along with our drawings, along with all the other documents that support this. So then it's that waiting game, whether you're chosen the ticket, whether it's a provisioning center or not. Again, most cultivation sites are pretty much the larger sites. They already know who they are. They're pre-approved, and you don't have to go through very vigorous application process for a cultivation, as long as it meets the qualifications of the parameters of the surrounding buildings and uses of the spaces or surrounding buildings next door to you. Then we go into our construction documents, and that's where we coordinate with Junior as far as what type of, or the cultivator, or the tenant, or the landlord, on what type of fixtures. There's HPS, there's LED lights, and the market is changing every day. Junior will tell you. There's some new lights that just came out. This is not a, some like he said, basement growers, caregivers, are used to a certain way. When you go to a commercial grow, which has got to be state approved, your product has to be approved by a metric system. It has to pass testing, otherwise it does not qualify to be resold in a provisioning center, or resold or reused in a processing and what have you. So that industry, as far as Junior's side, is material and equipment, is changing every day. It's getting better. It's getting stronger. It's, our biggest hurdles are usually lack of power in the building. There's not enough power. Like, a couple of cities, their grid system is very old. They do not have enough power, and it's taking years to bring the power there. Some people went a few hours north of here and bought acreage and acres at a very cheap price, but didn't realize that the grid system is years away from being upgraded, so they're running their facilities off of generators, propane generators, and there's no natural gas up there, or there's not enough power for the electricity. So that's another big hurdle that we have during the design phase, because we're trying to make sure that we can accommodate, whether it's a Class A 500 count plant, Class B 1,000 count plant, Class C 1,500/2,000 on the rec side. So we have to make sure that there is enough power for this facility to run and operate before we even tell you to go ahead and do your construction documents and get your engineering plans and architectural plans done.
So John, you work through the whole state of Michigan doing this?
Yes, we do.
Is it difficult from one power company to the next? Because obviously it's not just consumers and DTE around.
Correct. The more northern you go, it's more farmland, it's more widespread, it's more wide open, and the power is limited. You know, you have a house sitting on 15 acres or a commercial land, 20-acre commercial land that has no power. So you're waiting on the power company out there to upgrade the service, to bring it, and it's years away, it's thousands of dollars away.
John, so who pays that cost
So,
to bring the power to the
typically,
site?
you're a good customer to the, like the DTE, so they'll give you a courtesy discount. It depends on the demand. Let's say Tommy has a site half a mile away from me. I have a site, he has a site, he has a, so we're all gonna go in together. They're gonna upgrade the whole grid system. They're gonna do it on their cost, because you're going to be a good paying customer. You know, your electricity bill is in the thousands. It's not a couple hundred, it's thousands of dollars a month, along with your gas, along with your cost of running your facility,
Water.
CO2, water. Every city's different, but yeah, the carrying costs, the utility costs are just as expensive as operation. There's a big operation cost to it.
To our viewers, just make sure you guys share this link so people get to be able to view this and put this out there if you guys can. Again, this was brought to you by Wilson Sarkis Films, so if you guys can give us a hand and share this so everybody get the knowledge that we're giving you. So what people don't know, that with all that you just said, with all that you did, with all that they've done with you, that even before getting to the other two at the end at this point in time, they can bomb on an application because somebody else beat them. The winners, the losers, like Harry was talking about. So they still would. So the cost is still there. Some people I've seen dump $100,000 with a no.
Easily.
You know,
Easily.
Something that I've noticed personally as an application maker over the last, let's say, 2 years. 2 years ago, if you had a property sitting in a zone, you were doing an application, no questions asked. No questions asked. You're doing an application there.
Okay.
What I've noticed, the business people in this industry especially have become far more selective, because they've realized, I just dumped 6 figures into this application, I lost. I did it in another city, You cannot continue to do that.
No.
So guys are getting smart, they're strategically thinking, they're teaming up with other people. There's so many facets that go into a good application. It's not just the application itself. It's not even just the architect used or anything. It's the totality of the application.
Sure.
It may even be the politicking side of it.
Yep.
That you didn't even work on.
You think?
You know, that's a huge part of this that
Community
people don't like
outreach.
to brush on, but
Community outreach is huge.
Community outreach and politicking is huge in this industry. The people that are making a decision on your application are the leadership of that community. Your city council people. So if they don't know you and they know others who are the applicants, what do you think they're going to give?
And that's why there are a lot of them are getting sued, and that's
Correct.
why you know, they're losing out on application fees.
But you got to play
permits,
the
all
game.
that,
So
you know.
what I'm telling
But it's
clients
corruption,
now-
you know what I mean? I mean,
It's
they're
corruption.
rightfully.
Sure.
It's not. You know, they're picking and choosing, and you know, there's
There's been
it's not,
cases.
you know,
Junior,
it's
for the
proven-
first time ever, over a couple, like it was like a month ago, I told a client that I didn't feel comfortable submitting this application because I felt like they were going to waste their money. But 2 years ago, anybody wanted to come to me and submit a city application, sure. But now we've really, we take a deep dive into the requirements, and if they can't meet, you know, 80 to 90% of those requirements, then why even spend the money? Why even waste the time?
Because it's a dream. Everybody's chasing the dream.
It's a dream, but we got to keep our clients with realistic expectations. That's a big part of our job. You know, everyone comes, Sean, I don't know anything about the industry, but I want a license. Let's tone it down. Let's figure out exactly what you want to get out of this.
Right.
Because
which is
not everyone's going to hit the lottery ticket. We know that.
Right. So Joe, you want to add anything to the?
Well, as far as construction goes, there's industry standards, of course. With everything, with the grow rooms, everyone wants everything sealed. So you have typical construction of metal studs and then drywall, but drywall is moisture susceptible, so therefore you need cooler panels or plastic PVC panels or something to help seal your room up. People can see things on paper, but once you show them on site, they're going to say, well, why is this ceiling at 10 feet when I want it 12 feet? Everything's different. You know, everything changes on the fly. And once we submit something to Lara or to the state, they see everything. You can't really change everything either. Even when it comes to epoxy, like if you're doing a testing facility, you're using all these chemicals and all this other stuff, you need epoxy on your floor, epoxy on your base and everything. Anything spills, that's all, you know, contaminants. It's all, you know.
ways that change the calibration of your equipment.
Right.
Can I ask you guys about material? Because something that I've noticed I've been running into is some of the caregiver homes that have been getting their doors knocked down by the municipalities. Some municipalities are totally fine. They just want to come do inspections, make sure you pull your permits and whatnot. But you know what I've been seeing a lot lately? You can't use this material. It's flammable. You can't use this material. It's unsafe. So can you guys speak on some of the material that caregivers use when they build out?
We don't do much caregivers, Sean. It's not, we're trying to educate everyone to get out of the basement grow, get out of the caregivers, 72 plants,
If
go
they are
commercial.
doing one, like in an industrial area.
You should be pulling permits,
Sure.
mainly electrical permits, because most of them only have 200 amp service coming into your house, and you really need that minimum 320, which is really the 400.
Yeah.
So they do illegal taps, illegal hookups, and they're running extension cords, which are frowned upon. Everything's a fire hazard. Everything
Sure.
is. You know, you don't want to use wood studs because they're flammable. Again, who's getting inspected and who's even inspecting your product?
John, people live there. People are living in these.
People
Yeah,
live
that's
there.
crazy.
People make sacrifices.
So that's why I like to not deviate why we're here, but that is why we're here today with this group, because it's kind of, you're outgrowing that, no pun intended, right? You're moving to the level of getting to that. So that's why when it comes time to seeing from your end and going all the way to here before we've even gotten to the last two is, it's no more basement games, it's real time here, real money, real investments. You know, you're dealing with major crop losses if he didn't seal the room right, if stuff leaked, if you're epoxy, you know what I'm saying? Like, so in regards to that, like sticking to that, we have to follow those guidelines, and you've already done some. Do you want to at least touch on the process and time-wise? You did the architect work. Doesn't the state then, after we do what we have to do and put things together, come in, and then we still have to talk to you if there's any changes or things that we have to still submit?
Yes, like Joe said.
Before we do that, I want to answer one question for you. One thing people don't think about is CO2 life safety. People have what they call the burner in their basements, which is used natural gas.
Not even allowed.
Not allowed at all.
Even
Zero.
I'm glad you brought that, because even if you talk about it from our perspective, selling the equipment, we can't sell the equipment like we did in the, it's not the
Correct.
LP and the NP natural gas or NG natural gas burners. You got to get true CO2. It's got to be installed in there. There's got to be alarm sensors in there, and
Correct.
it's all got to go off. But it's got to be only cold CO2. They got to come hook up, load you up, boom, So
Correct.
let
For the
them know
most
about all
part, you
that.
put like a bulk CO2,
Yep.
same thing as McDonald's uses for their drinks and
Yep.
whatnot. It'll be outside, covered by bollards and posts, protected. And then you would run your CO2 inside your rooms, whichever rooms get it. And you'd have CO2 life safety as far as whatever application you're using, but you'd have a basic manifold inside the room. And with sensors, alarms,
Yep.
horn strobes, just a full 9. Also, certain cities like Centerline, no matter what size your building is, they require fire suppression, whether it's 1,000 square feet or I think
That's
it's
a lot.
12,000 square feet is
Doesn't
the
matter.
minimum.
And it's expensive
Right,
to
no
put in.
correct. And if you got to tap it into the city, then now you're talking a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
People think, oh, I grow now, let's just jump
Yeah.
into commercial. It's a completely different ballgame.
What, everyone, obviously talks about how expensive construction costs can get and material costs. Talk about some unforeseen, what kind of unforeseen costs do you, besides sprinkler systems and, like maybe fencing, or what other big ticket items are you seeing that get overlooked often?
Basically, it's the unforeseen, and whether it's the building, depends on what type of HVAC method you are using. If you are using air handlers, which are your traditional furnaces in your house, with the air conditioning condenser, whether it's pad mounted outside or roof mounted on the roof, it's the air condition that we don't really care about, but it's the furnaces. If they're sitting on the ground in the grow room, no problem. But a lot of guys like to hang them outside in the hallway. They like to hang them from the joist above. And we gotta structurally make sure that it's sound and carry that additional load of 5 units in a 1,000 or 2,000 square foot room. It vibrates. Some guys have ductwork, some don't have ductwork. A lot of unforeseen is, you're going into older buildings that have been used by GM 30, 40, 50 years ago and Ford, and their concrete slab is not your traditional 4 inches, it's 6, 8 inches. We don't know that, and then you go to saw cut for your underground plumbing or underground electrical, whatever you may have underground. Now that price just doubled because it's a double thickness of your concrete that you got to cut, remove, and replace. Then hopefully you have enough pitch to go to your nearest sanitary. Another big hurdle as we're having right now lately is a lot of cities don't want your runoff going straight into the sanitary sewer. So you have to have these huge sump pump pits in the ground that go through a series of filters and recycling pumps, which is good for recycling and reusing it all, but it's a huge tank under the ground that is being filtered through a series of filters, then recycled back into your cultivation. And Joe knows more about how that process
Water
is.
consumption is probably the biggest thing there. Waste and just a consumption. We like to try to reuse that, but yes, it can get expensive. But the best thing is to reuse it, refilter it, put it back in your system, put it through your reservoirs, and take it back to your rooms. That way, it saves costs. Yes, the upfront costs are enormous, but longevity, you're not in it for 1 year. You want hopefully 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and that will get you your best bet for your money, best bang for your buck there.
Right.
And that's huge.
And after we get our local inspections, when it's very close to being done, just like when you have a restaurant, you're ready to open, you call the health department for their final inspection. We have to call the state of Michigan that does the Fire Bureau of Codes, and if you make any changes, if walls moved, if ceilings changed, if the location of anything moves, we have to update our drawings and resubmit those to the state prior to them. They have to get approved from the state, and then they come prior to them doing their final inspection before they give you that clean bill of health or their C of O to go ahead and open, and then they give you your metric at that time, I believe. You get your metric number, which is your license to grow and sell. So that's another big hurdle right now. The state of Michigan is backed up because of COVID. And then, I think between us and then Tommy, we work together because we need to coordinate his low voltage backing for him. The electrician needs certain things to get done to carry, because these lights are, how heavy are these lights, Junior?
27 pounds for LED.
Some of them are more, like
10
the
for
new one's
double
30
hundred.
something for the
It's 30-some pounds per light fixture, and if you may have 60 in a room, we have to reinforce the ceilings to carry that extra load, which is putting more stress on the roof, which is, I know fortunately right now it's January 20th, we don't have much snow on the roof, but typically you have a couple of feet or a foot of snow on the roof, which is adding more weight, which is compressing on the roof, which is stressing the roof. And you don't want leaks in the middle of the winter. Who's going to come and service it? You get ice build up, and now your humidity's changed in the room. There's a lot of moving parts in this business. But at the end of the day, everybody has their own method, their own process, and their own procedure, which works. That's just what they're used to.
And what you mean by that, so what I can touch in with that is, if we sell to you as the consumer, he can set it up as a single floor, one level on tables. You can shift them left to right and move them from the ability to walk through, or 2-tier, 3-tier, depending on how high your ceilings are. Then we've got to set them up to that, because now there's different things that the city requires when you start going vertical versus horizontal and everything. So
more HVAC, more electrical, more lights,
Yep.
double everything.
And what people need to understand also, because of coming from one side to this side, is it's not your 120, 240 anymore. You're mostly working with your 3-phase 277s. You're going to be using on higher mechanics, so that way, because you want your HVAC and all that to run better and all that
More
too.
efficient.
So yeah, you guys will help play that part in with it. So after we get you guys going, how do we get to Tommy.
Before we go to Tommy,
Yeah.
you may be all done, and when we call you,
Yep.
Joe will say, our humidity is spiking, so you're still a little bit tweaking. You might say, you need to get this type of Quest dehue,
Yep.
or these type of hurricane fans.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, just because everything's done and it's on paper, it may not work. But you still have tweaking to do
Sure.
to get that room calibrated to the proper temperature and humidity, which is extremely important.
Great point. That's a great point, because usually, like, even when we're doing it on a smaller scale, we used to say run your room for 24 to 48 hours, see what your highs and your lows were. So that's a great
You have
point to
14-foot
touch on.
ceilings, 16-foot
Yep.
ceilings.
Totally different league right now that you're working with here. And plus, you're dealing with sometimes some of these rooms, if let's say example Class C will give you 1,500, you might only have a 5,000 square foot building and you want to just stack,
Right.
30 under a light and so forth, or 15 under a light and so forth. So, okay. After we get you done, we're submitted now into the city. Doesn't it get to Tommy that now it goes to the state for the low voltage? Or is he still are you part of also the city and state when it
He's
comes
both.
I'm both, mostly state though.
So why don't you jump in, Tommy, and give
So
us.
what we do is we'd come in, we'd pre-wire the building, figure out all the locations, figure out the RFID, the card access. Usually we Wi-Fi the whole building, just because people tend to use like the rolling carts with the laptops to do all their seat to sale through metric. And then once everything's squared away, we do an inspection, then we call Lara, and then we do an MRA inspection, and then the state comes in, we show them all no blind spots. They require 30 days of footage, and they require a timestamp photo. And then we meet all the requirements, and then I'm usually there for every single inspection with the state, and I walk the whole facility with them, and there's no issues.
So, question for you, Tommy. Are some cities requiring that I have to take my camera system and tie it into the police
feed?
department or anything, or
Only
live
the
feed?
city of Centerline is the only city that requires that right now.
Do you think they'll adapt more on by seeing what you're seeing, possibly? And why did Centerline do it versus the others not?
I would say Centerline's a little bit more strict on how they do things.
Okay.
And since it was so new to them, they just wanted to, I guess this was their way of saying we're different from everyone else.
Just like they want a fire suppression system. They're the only city that, regardless of the square foot,
Sure.
you have to have a fire suppression system.
And what's some of the stuff needed, and what is like some of the stuff entailed that's required from us that we've got to have you do for us? Like if you can give us the most crucial ones to some of the silliest things that they require.
For the state or for just the municipal?
Yeah, let's say state, once we go in for any facility, like, there's some requirements that are so like, they're outrageous, some of the stuff that they ask,
Well, it goes by, I think the cities, like, I've heard that, like, Traverse City requires every door to be card access, but like Detroit doesn't require it, Ferndale doesn't require it, but I've noticed that everyone likes it for more security, because each user gets a badge and each one has restrictions, and the good thing about it is, if you guys close at 9, every employee's card dies. But if you're like an owner or manager, you have 24-hour access, and they like that.
Okay.
Tom, you want to talk about the security plans as well that you do for cities?
So what we do is, let's say after they finish with you, they go to John. John does a drawing. John sends it to me, and then we do a security plan. And my security plan includes cameras, card access, and alarm. And we submit a 9-page packet. And it tells you how many cameras, where they're located, what's mapped out,
Type of camera.
what type of camera it is, what type of system. And then what I do is I'd email it either to the attorney or I'd email it to the architect, and he would submit it in his like booklet of packets.
Correct.
And then if they get approved, then we would sit down and figure out, okay, we got the cameras, we got the alarm, we got the security. Do you guys need speakers? Do you guys need Wi-Fi? Do you guys need strobes, because we started doing CO2 now in all the flower rooms.
Okay.
So that's a new thing that we started adding. And then that's pretty much it, like networking. And I have a lot of places now, they want speakers in the rooms because they say the plants, like have a personality. So
Like dance.
They like to dance. So one room will play rap, the other one will play Beethoven. And, it sounds great. And then,
That's funny.
There actually was machines that were sold for that, but they're not for music. What they would do is farmers were able to get them. We still can source them if we wanted to, but it sits in the center of the room and it spins inside of a glass, like dome. It's probably about this big, and it sends a constant vibration through the room to stimulate the plants. So there is a method to it that they get to use out there. Do you do alarms and everything too, right? So like, are you involved like in the alarm side of it too, or the security?
Yes, we're on the alarm side. We just started doing alarms,
Okay.
and we're launching an audio video monitoring center in the next couple of months.
Which is what?
We're gonna live feed monitor all your outside cameras. So say if you guys open from 9 to 6, at like 7 o'clock, we will monitor from 7 p.m. till 9 a.m.
Sure.
And if anyone walks up to the building and they cross a line, it would alert us. It would have an audio recording, and we'd pick up the phone and we would talk to the person, say, hey, you're on private property. If you don't give us your PIN number right now, we will have to notify the authorities. So let's say, for example, you went there after hours and we see you, either if you don't call us ahead, we're either gonna call you or you're gonna call us and say, well, my code is 3210 and this is my first and last name. We'll look it up and then you're all set. There's nothing to worry about. Just another added layer of security because certain areas are not.
Which is extremely needed because cities always fear that. They always fear like the break-ins and everything. Do you guys offer like armed services, like if with security, if like you guys can add for a certain value to the client, where you guys can send your own personal protection, like 80?
No, we're just a low voltage company.
Okay.
They sent Tommy.
They sent Tommy. They sent you.
Tommy
Huh?
does it himself.
Yeah, send me.
Yeah.
Put the 45
Rambo.
on the hip and get rolling.
Mini Rambo.
Mini Rambo.
There you go. And what are some of the reasons that the people may get rejected in a city for stuff after submitting, or what is some of the things that you have had to go back and fix up, or hurdles that the consumer or the client
You
brought
make
on?
sure that doesn't happen, right?
Not from his end, meaning the client. What headaches have they caused, if you can ask them not to cause?
So let's say we pre-wire a building and
Yep.
there's like 26 flower rooms, for example. I'll go there in 2 weeks and they have 40 flower rooms. And I'm like, what happened? They're like, well, we just moved a couple walls. We had a couple walls. We did some expansion. Well, I'm like,
Very nice.
you need 30 more cameras. You need 30 more doors. And we've already have it all mapped down. The building's already pre-wired. So now we got to go back. Now there's more people working in the building.
So they shouldn't do that.
They should.
No afterthoughts.
No, I mean, it's okay because it's good. It's more business. I'm not going to complain about it. But then you start jumping the gun, and then your bill goes up X amount of dollars. You're like, what happened? Well, you added this amount of rooms, and so that's usually the biggest thing we run into. It's a lot of changes because they'll say we hired this grower and this guy will grow his stuff in these types of rooms, and then they'll say, well, this guy grows certain this way, so we have to change how we position the cameras because we might go from like 10 foot to 9 foot, so I have to make sure that my camera is low enough and that it will show the plants in the rooms.
Yeah, we'll see. And that's very important, again, because we're going to need to, pretty much it's all part of our data, our viewing, our seeing, plus our protective in case the lights were left on for any reason. You know what I'm saying? If something misfired or didn't kick on right.
And then we use these special type of cameras where I can leave them on 24/7. So let's say the room turns off and the plants go to sleep. There's not a red light shining around the camera, so it doesn't affect the plants. So now they say people get seeds in the plants from like a light leak.
Yep.
And you wouldn't think a camera would cause a light leak, but I've been to a lot of sites that they'll grow 100 plants, but those 4 plants in that corner,
Got something from the infrared.
Yeah.
You get from the infrared on the camera. Okay, well, great then. So once they pass your point, now they've gotten through you two, got you guys, they're up and running, business is going.
God willing.
Yeah, God willing, they're moving. All that hurry up and wait got you to the final piece of the puzzle. So we're gonna talk to you, Charlene. We're gonna get into the important role that you have on this industry. And after meeting and knowing what you do, how you're also important to my store as the industry too as well, because there's a lot of viewers out here that are store owners too that are watching tonight. So let us know what you got.
Finally.
Let's wipe our brows, guys.
Well, I hope there's going to be time for me.
That's for last.
It's actually, I'm just going to take a step back. It's not when you're up and running, but when you're about to break ground. Usually they call me because there's going to be a whole bunch of expenses, right? They paid their attorney, they paid for the attestation, they're paying the architects, they're paying all these guys, and they don't know how to keep track of it. A lot of them are just putting it in Excel, and they're getting nervous when tax season is coming up, and they're like, what do I do? Most of them are still using a bank account at like Chase or Huntington, and they're worried that it's gonna get frozen because you're not allowed to use those banks, so they'll call me and they'll say, I have an Excel spreadsheet with a bunch of expenses, what do I do? And so what I do really is I get all of your accounting in order from day one. You're breaking ground, you have some expenses. I make sure I create like a QuickBooks account for you. We go over all your expenses. I handle all of your day-to-day. I go with you to the bank. I help you open up a bank account. I help you with your cash. I help you organize all of your expenses so that when it's your tax return time, when it's your audit, you are fully prepared, because everyone up here knows that you have to get an audit every year. So we need to make sure that you are ready for your audit so it's smooth and easy and you don't have any problems.
Now, in my case, because, you know, why people realize, I mean, we go through an abundance of money day in and day out. We're not the old thinkers. Talk about what you explained to me, like meaning by old thinkers, you know, what our parents used to think and how it is today.
So I realized that a lot of CPAs and a lot of store owners or growers or processors, they just kind of take their stuff to their CPA, throw their books, and then the CPA will say, this is how much you owe in sales tax and this is how much you owe in payroll tax. They have no idea how much they're spending. They don't have a budget. They don't go over their budget with their CPA, and I'm the one that's involved in your day-to-day. The old school thinker didn't want that. They didn't care, they didn't want to know, but I think all these new school guys, they want someone involved. So every week we have management meetings with the partners, and I go over the financials, I go over where their cash went, I send accounts payable every week. I know a lot of these guys don't have accounts payable because everything is really done on demand, but sometimes they do. Sometimes they're owed money. A lot of these guys have ATM income, and they won't know how much they're receiving unless I tell them. So I'm involved, and it's kind of annoying, but I'm involved every day. I will contact you every day if you need me to. Every morning, some clients like it every morning, some clients like it every Monday. I tell you how much cash you have. You want to know how much cash you have to spend? You're about to write $20,000 in checks. I'm going to let you know if you have that cash. So I'm just really involved. I worked in private, and I realized that a lot of these public companies don't have a controller type figure. They don't have someone that will talk to them and say, let me help you open up a bank account. Let me help you pay your bills. Let me help you organize your finances. A lot of them don't get financials at all. A lot of them don't know what their profit is or where they're spending too much, and that's what I do. I'm directly involved. I'm a real serious part of the company. I help you hire employees. A lot of them ask me for new hire packets. I'm there all the time for all of their needs. Check images. I talk with the bank mostly to help them, but yeah.
Well, how do you manage all of that?
I have a team.
Team, okay.
I have a team, yeah. I have a great team.
You want anyone to think it's just you.
It's not just me. I have a phenomenal team, and yeah, it's not.
Okay, cool.
You did say bank, so with the two accounts here, CPA and all the financing going through the two of you in this industry, any banks you guys can shout out? Anybody that you can?
Yeah, there's more and more banks coming online early on. I don't want to drop any names, but
yeah, it's okay. I mean,
I want to drop a name.
No, that's fine. But early on, it was Live Life, right? Everyone went to Live Life Credit Union, and they're probably still the largest.
You can't call them a bank otherwise.
Credit union.
Yeah,
right?
they're a credit union. They'll let you know. Like if you call them a bank, you got to put money in the tip jar.
I'm shouting out Donna Bashy.
Yeah,
and what bank is she with?
Community Choice.
And where are they out of?
They have 21. You said 21 locations.
21 locations.
Does anyone on the
panel?
panel?
There's Lansing.
Do you know on the panel know an electrician?
Do I know an electrician?
Yeah, anybody?
I know a phenomenal electrician.
Do you?
Energy Electric, Shaun Mansour. There's none better.
What's his name?
Shaun Mansour.
And how do they get a hold of the company?
248-866-8828.
I hope that's not a cell phone.
That is that's a cell phone.
Perfect.
But yeah, no,
so back to Donna.
But just so you know, that Community Choice is actually a great bank, because I have seen some of the fees, and Community Choice by far right now is my favorite. Donna's amazing. I had a client, I sent her a client today, and she reached out today and scheduled a phone call with him. It's just really great. They're a great bank, and I really just can't stress that enough.
There's high fees too, I'm sorry. There's high fees at all of these banks. Some of them are $3,500 to $4,000 a month just to bank with them. So you should really shop around to try to get the best rate, and that's what I do with you. I try to help you get the best rate.
And that's a little tough because the industry that we're in, it's safer to do that and pay that fee and hold it into a
Correct.
safe facility than in your shoebox and in the closet. So as you mentioned, that young lady from the bank, I believe we're going to have you guys on to continue with a forward interview that will have you guys on to explain more into it, go in depth, how, what's, to get involved. So we'll have you on with Keeping Up with the Chaldeans on with that to further that conversation.
Perfect.
Are you guys seeing any lending at all
Yes.
from any of these banks, and what kind of lending?
I don't
are
want to speak
seeing?
for you guys will hear
Yeah.
more on the show, but
Yeah,
when
is
when
it-
you bring Donna on the show,
Yes.
it's going to
Sure.
be a great segment.
Fantastic.
Because they're the first credit union that I've been informed of that's
Yep.
actually doing construction loans.
Yep.
Yes.
So
So
they're
I actually sent
yeah.
her someone today. He called me and he said, "Is it possible?" And I said, "Let's talk to Donna." And he's really excited. He did not think that it was possible, and I still don't know what's going to happen for him, but
It's
yeah.
somewhere along the lines
Yeah.
of like 65% of your build-out cost
Yeah.
that they'll lend
Okay.
you, which
Nice.
is great for our people. I mean, it's
Fantastic.
something I wanted to say.
sure
I don't mean to
cutting
cut
the-
you
Yeah,
off.
no, you're not cutting over. You're
Because
good.
this is Keeping Up with the Chaldeans.
Yep.
I've literally worked with every single contractor you can work with in this industry.
Sure.
And there's a Chaldean that fills every space.
Yes.
Whether it's an electrician, whether it's your AC guy, your builders, your CPA, your attorney, your credit union person,
Yes.
whoever it is, there's a Chaldean to fill that goal. So I would
100%.
just say support your people before you reach out to anyone else.
100%.
That's yep. That's
But to
correct.
answer Harry's question, early on it was more private lending.
Sure, yeah.
Private
Mhm.
equity.
Absolutely, yeah,
funding,
friends
things
and
like that.
family, yeah.
Right, and.
That's still going on today.
It is.
Those high
It
interest
is.
rates, of course.
But there's
Yeah.
other brokerage firms across the country that are lending, but again, at higher interest rates. But we're
Right.
seeing more and more credit
Traditional
unions and
banking.
other
Yeah.
traditional banking come online.
Sure.
So
Can I
you
say
just
one more thing?
yeah, I want
course.
to give you got a shout out. So that
What's the
shout out.
shout-out?
I'm
Who's
not
the shout-out?
disclosing her client. The client disclosed who
Who's
they
the shout
use.
out?
So Northern Roots Provisioning Center says Charlene is our CPA, and we couldn't be happier. Highly recommend. Thank you, Charlene.
Good job, Charlene.
So,
Thanks,
good job.
guys.
Good job.
No,
What
the
is the clap?
serious reason
Sick.
why they like
Love
me
it.
is because I realized that there wasn't anyone, there
You filled
wasn't
a void.
anyone filling this controller need,
Mhm.
because, like I said, most of the old school guys didn't want this. They just
Mhm.
wanted to throw things every year, give you receipts. I make them aware of everything. But
Yeah.
really what I wanted to say really quick was a lot of these guys banking with Chase and Huntington, kind of hoping that they don't get frozen, they really need to stop, because Chase will shut you down. Chase specifically, they are really tough. They will shut a freelancer down, they will shut an electrician down, they will shut a plumber down.
They
if
will
you
shut a
cash
grow
the-
store
They
down.
will shut a grow store.
Yep.
So if you're, not even if you're a grower or a dispensary, but if you help
Any
in any
affiliation.
way, you need to open up a bank
Mm-hmm.
account at Community Choice or whatever you want. But you need to open up a bank account, because you can't cash those
Yeah.
checks at Chase. You will get shut down.
And it's just
if
that.
you're an employee of any of these places, you will get shut down. Open up a credit union. That's really important that you know that.
Yep, and I'm glad you
Yeah.
said that, because
Yeah.
even just me as a grow store, before anybody was even banking in this industry, we've been in the store for 12 years. And in 12 years, I've gone through 5 banks.
Yes.
I'm now on my 6th one right now. I just started recently with Elga. Elga took me on. She just asked simple questions. She says, "Are you selling any cannabis out there?" I said, "Nope." But my God, what the other ones did, to me, holy cow, they scrutinized me to the point they came in, they mystery shopped me and booted me right out.
It's not worth. Yeah, it's not worth it. If you could just
No.
go to Community or whatever bank you want, and for freelancers or anyone not directly in the business, it's a really cheap rate. I think it's $5 or $10. So you really should consider it. I think it's really important that I said that.
Can you tell us the difference between, or explain a little difference between a controller and a CPA?
So what I do is I handle more of the day-to-day.
Mhm.
And what I did want to say, I want to shout out Simon too. You do have to get audited every year, correct? And you have to do your taxes every
Yes.
year. I don't do that. I can't do your audit if I'm doing your accounting.
Mhm.
So the reason people like Simon and I working together on a lot of things is because I give him the audits for my clients, and it's very seamless. We work together, we're in the same building, we're not on the same floor, but we're in the same building, and my clients love that their audit, their AUP, is going to someone they know, because my clients, I make sure that Simon handles all of their taxes, and most likely he probably did all of their attestations because he's very well known in this industry. So this isn't a difference between me and Simon, but I want to say that I can't handle your AUPs, your audits, if I'm doing your accounting. So I give everything that I can't do to Simon. However, Simon also does financials and CPA work. We both do very similar things. I just like to involve myself kind of into your space a lot so that you're up to date every single day.
Yeah, to add to that.
Day to day, every day, I become very involved in your lives.
And to add to that, I've helped build accounting systems for clients. So there's applicants or operators that come in and maybe they don't have an accounting team in-house, but they want to build this accounting team in-house because they're maybe an MSO, multi-state operator, or they have multiple locations in the state where they want to have a CFO on site and an accounting team on site.
Yeah.
So they consult with me and I help build that accounting system, and I've done that. And we've consulted with putting those policies and procedures in place. But I also will take your accounting and a little bit different than what you do, Charlene, but Charlene is going to be more hands-on. From my perspective, we're doing the accounting and we're managing your QuickBooks or your accounting system, and then we're providing you your financial statements. It's more from consulting and trying to get you audit ready as well, but Charlene, you'll find that she'll be able to be more hands-on with the finer details. But of course, there's a lot of CPAs in this space. We all try to work together. We all try to do the right thing for clients. You know, I get phone calls from, no less than a half a dozen other CPAs, every other day or something like that, asking questions. Because again, we're all trying to do the right thing, and we're trying to be consistent in this industry, because there are a lot of gray areas when it comes to accounting and when it comes to tax. And we try to take positions that are going to be the most favorable if you're ever under audit.
Yeah, you got to protect your clients.
Yeah.
How much would you, talk, if we could talk about 280E and, really how much of an impact that has on, the overall profits of a provisioning center, because obviously that's the only license type it applies to, because you can only deduct your cost of goods only. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that maybe just, don't have a good grasp, getting in, there's a lot of people that come in and say, hey, I want to open up a dispensary, and just one dispensary, that's fine, but, obviously, you only fall under the 280E, and...
What is a 280E?
How much you can deduct.
Yeah, 280E is a tax code that everyone should be familiar with, but there's more than just 280E, but that's the main one. That pretty much, it's just two sentences, but in a nutshell, it just means that you can only take your cost of goods as a deduction if you are in this, if it's an illegal business.
Illegal or
illegal?
Illegal, okay.
So being that marijuana is illegal.
Is this a federal tax?
Federal tax code,
all right,
correct,
gotcha.
federal tax code. So and what that means is you have your sales minus the cost of that product, gross profit. You're paying tax on that gross profit. You're not able to take deductions for payroll, for rent, for utilities. There are some exceptions.
Wow.
There are some caveats to push certain cost of goods, but in a nutshell, there's not many from a provisioning center perspective.
Yeah.
From the grower perspective or a processor, we can push more of those costs or those expenses to cost of goods. So it's important to, whether it's me, Charlene, or in-house, to make sure you have a very healthy chart of accounts that can support those positions you're taking.
And you guys
That's
did mention
crazy.
before that the audits happen quite frequently. They're starting to pick up now?
Well, so the state of Michigan requires an annual financial statement, an AFS, or an AUP. It's an agreed upon procedures engagement that we CPAs will undertake. And there's a workbook that the state put together. It was actually created by other CPAs that the state is using. And we have to use these procedures to document our findings on your revenue, your expenses, your disbursements, the vendors you're paying, the ownership structure. So there's a larger list of different things we have to follow these procedures on. But from an IRS perspective,
people in Michigan have only been licensed, this is their 3rd year?
Yep.
So the IRS will usually not audit you until you've been in business at least 3 years, because they usually go back 3 years and audit you. So in Colorado, in Washington, and California, these companies that have been operating for several years have already been audited. There's a lot of tax law cases that we do follow, Harborside, and there's a number of others. But in Michigan, I would imagine that we're going to start seeing audits next year, because some of these companies will have been in business 3 years. So if you don't have proper accounting and proper record keeping, you're going to struggle. You're going to have a hard time winning the position you've taken on your financial statements, on the tax return, if you can't support it.
Can I say something actually?
Of course. $5 for $5. Okay.
$5?
Yes.
Okay, so when you were talking about the AUPs, the agreed upon procedures, I noticed that doing them this year, they were really asking they were just asking for a lot of receipts. They were asking for a lot of details. I'm talking about if you spent $5 at the dollar store, they could ask you for that receipt. It could be the receipt that's pulled up. So if you're not organized all year around, that audit is going to go poorly. You're going to get some negative marks. They're going to have to write things like, they didn't have procedures in place, and that's going to go in a bad direction. So if you don't have your accounting all year clean, you're going to possibly fail it's not a failure or pass, but it's going to have negative remarks. So it's really important that you keep your accounting clean all year.
And to add to that, because this is very important.
Very important. This is the most important.
Guys, but,
not the most important, but it's very important.
So, the state, if we follow these procedures and we can't verify or substantiate information on that, then we have to document that as an exception.
Yes.
And then it's up to the state to determine what they want to do with that. Whether they look at it and maybe inquire a little bit more as to why there's this exception, or maybe they will refer it to the enforcement division.
Correct.
If it's a serious matter. So you do want to make sure that your accounting is up to date, your record keeping is top notch, because you're spending hundreds of thousands, or if not millions of dollars in this industry. Don't take shortcuts. Yeah. And it's not worth it.
It's important to have good cash logs. This is a cash-heavy business, and you need to every day record what you're spending your cash on.
Well, shortcuts have definitely been a pain in the rear in this industry. Before we take off, I just wanted to touch with you two real quick on this. A lot of times I've seen people want to walk in as doing phases on these. I've heard that it's probably the one of the worst ways to walk into it, because of everything you have to do continuously after that. Inspector's got to come in, state's got to come back, and you guys got to continuously do work on things with that. Can you give us a little insight on that?
Well, two things. If you're walking into a 50,000 square foot building and you want to build, say, 25,000 square feet, Tom is going to do our security plan to those cameras. I can't have any access to phase 2 in phase 1 right now. But if there's an exit somewhere, I got to use phase 2 as an exit for egress security. Problem is if you're in a large building, you have whatever you got going on in phase 2, dirt, and you got to re-epoxy your floors, grind your floors, all this new construction. And if you're not properly sealed from phase 1 to phase 2, you're inviting contaminants, dust, debris, whatever inside your room. But the problem is with phase 1, phase 2 is money. I mean, it's very expensive to operate and to start from phase 1 to phase 2. So they wait to do phase 1, recoup some money after a couple of crops, successful crops, go on and plan phase 2. But at that point, they have a little more money and a mindset of what they want and where they want to go and how they want their room set up. But now I get back with Tommy, because everything from phase 1 and 2 just have to correlate with each other. Security vaults. It's not just typical construction. You still need showers and everything's way more power. Power right now in Warren is hard to get. Power right now, like John was saying, if we're going somewhere far, we need wind turbines if you're going to create your own power. And also, if you're going off of a well, how long is that well going to last you?
Yeah, we have a site. We have a site that's about 2 hours away. We are going to put how many wind turbines?
3.
3 wind turbines to generate the power because there's not enough juice there.
So just for the viewers, so you hear what he's saying. He's saying wind turbines. So that's the big propeller that you see that sometimes when you're driving up north or places that you go out of town, and you'll see that are going to be turning some of this power because they can't get enough power.
How much are those things?
Yeah.
Well, they're actually expensive, but there's a good tax incentive rebate. Then you get to store some of that power, you get to use it, and you get to sell it back to the energy company because they want your power. So it's,
if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it's 3 wind turbines. I want to say it's roughly $3 million.
Oh, cheap.
And I think his return investment's in like 2 years or so. But he's going to supply himself for a long time. But also here in, say, a Tri-County area, your power goes out, good luck. No one ever really thinks of a backup generator or anything like that where he's got a wind turbine and he's good to go. I mean, it's power, gas, everything be naturally, you know.
Yeah, if you have
We got a couple minutes left to go. We'll just fire a couple questions if you guys just want to answer them quick enough. Otherwise, what they'll do is they can reach out to you guys, and you guys can further elaborate. So we've got somebody actually. There's a gentleman who wants Harry's phone number. His name is David Kasha. So when you go to YouTube, make sure you look him up. He said he asked for your cell phone number. Charlene Jennifer Gumma says you're a beast.
Jennifer is amazing.
So John Kello asked, we don't want to get into this. Should we, well, I guess we can because we'll just do this quick enough, but should we expect the flower market to come down lower? Would you say there's a bottom? How many applications are still in the queue? He said, I'm trying to get a feel for how many applicants haven't entered the market. I just want to put one thing out there and then let you guys find to it, but just yesterday, for the record, so to touch on what you were saying too, Oregon's prices just went up. That sets a precedent across the country. So if Oregon's prices went up, which was one of the lowest in the country, that brings it back to that conversation of I don't think it's going to bottom out much sooner.
Yeah. So what happened in Oregon is some of the framework actually applies to the rec market, but they didn't have a barrier to entry. They didn't have any financial requirements. You know, anybody could have got it, anybody could have applied, anybody could have. So you had a lot of undercapitalized people getting in the industry, and it just, you know, it created, you know, there was a moratorium for quite some time because they were they had a 2 million pound surplus that they, you know, that they were backed up on. So, you know, that's kind of one of the things. Nobody, you know. No two states are the same because the laws are different, and you know, we have a medical program here that, you know, is how it started, and you know, that's still somewhat of a, you know, it's still a significant component, but it's shrinking. So what's going to happen is you know, the recreational market's going to take over. There's a lot of lower entry licenses that are going to be offered with the recreational market, you know, including the micro licenses and the Class A grows, the 100 plant grows, and so you know, there could be quite a few of you know, oversupply. Yeah, there's definitely looking like there's going to be some oversupply, and you know, it's not it's not calculated, so you know, it's going to be, you know, the best product wins, and the leanest operators will win, and a lot of those in the middle, you know, are gonna have to make other plans.
Also, I feel that we don't have enough landscape here in Michigan to allow cities to give us outdoor growing. So outdoor growing is only going to be subject to so many areas. We deal with a lot of potential powdery mildew, problems with pests and diseases that we run through because the state of Michigan, weather changes happens to be, you know, and some already faced it this season. So if anybody else is looking for anything in the industry, if you guys want to get into it, you can get into remediation. That's a whole nother field that's part of this industry. So again, sky's the limit with this. For the two of you guys here, and then I'll ask Charlene for the one question, but you two gentlemen can answer this. There is rebates. Someone asked, there is rebates. Tommy O'Connor said, are you guys looking to get incentive for the LEDs and the rebates from the power companies? If so, definitely. They asked, how are you going about doing that? He's with Lux Lighting, so we do a lot of business with them, and he wants to know how that would work with us out here.
Typically, we just pass it to the owner, and the owner, I think, usually would coordinate that with their CPA for the submissions of what they qualify for.
Okay.
We can document what type of power is there now and whether you're going down or up on your power usage. But we really don't get that involved in the submissions of those rebates.
Okay.
So those are taken on the tax return, just so you.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
good,
energy
it's good to know,
credits.
just because he
Yeah.
was asking, so it's good, so that would be good. You answered where to deposit the money, you gave the suggestion in there. Is there other means besides that you can offer, and like, where else can they do the money besides this? I mean, is there more banks than just that bank, that people can shop at, for options that you were saying?
I mean, there's Dart Bank, there's Live Life, there's Community Choice, there's a few banks, and you could definitely shop around. I could send you a list of banks, Simon could send you a list of banks, but you again, they have some really high fees. Not that fee should be the only determining factor, but just be aware that there's very high fees at these banks.
Okay.
So yeah,
Let's
and
go
then
through
it's really
the number of
important.
key factors.
It's really important too. Just another. I'm not to bring up the audit again, but they ask for cash procedures. Simon and I have to document how you handle your cash. We have to write a paragraph on what you do every day with your cash, how your employees handle it, where you store it. So it's really important that you have a safe, you have a bank account, you do daily deposits at least, hopefully every day, but if not every other day. So you really have to have a bank close by.
And Junior, what some of these credit unions are doing now,
Mhm.
they've been doing it, is they're contracting with like armored truck providers.
Yes.
Perfect.
That'll come pick up the cash and
Yep.
deliver it to the credit, so you're not driving with 60 or 70 grand in the car
Yes.
on your way to the credit union.
Yeah.
And I think most dispensary owners are using that service.
Good.
Can we go down the panel and just kind of give a little
Oh.
life-saving advice or money-saving tip
I'm sorry.
from each of us? What's that?
No, nothing, never mind, go ahead.
Can we just go down through the panel and just start with you and go down this way and give
Strongest
our
tip.
audience at least one quick tip or money-saving advice? Like you already let us know about Donna, which is great, in the bank, but can you give them another quick tip?
Yeah, I think a really important tip is save all of your receipts and keep track of all of your expenses from day one. It's very important that you have all of that and you save all your receipts and don't mingle your personal and business cards and bank accounts.
Tommy?
You can never have enough cameras at your facility.
That's a good one.
That is true.
For us, the architectural side, the design side, just be patient. It takes a little bit of time to get the drawings done properly, so you have a good submission, so you have a good product to represent what type of facility you're going to be.
About the build outside.
When you guys come to us, we hope to have everything set in stone, where what types of lights are using, what type of ACs, if you want them hung, duct and whatnot. We're working with you side by side from the start to the very finish. We want your dream to become a reality. And thankfully in the construction stages, we can change a wall or whatever it needs be to help accommodate your facility and your dream. So it's never too late to make any changes or any mistakes where we can recoup it and build back upon that.
Gotcha.
Can I throw a quick?
Absolutely.
I
was
got
gonna
probably
ask
one
you
of
for
the-
sure.
Junior, you never said where your shop is.
Oh yeah, I'm my store is HGR Garden Supply. It's in Holly, Michigan. The one tip I can give, especially to our community, you guys, it ain't about that. You want to come into my store and talk to me about 5 above or 10 above. That conversation is not going down. I don't care how you think about it, whatever you want to look at it. You get service with us, just like everybody sitting over here who expects their due sitting at this panel right here. We do as well. There's a lot of work that goes in. We got to put a $100,000 order. You think just because you send me a list and I just plug that stuff in, that's all I got to do with you? You're out of your mind. Get the 5%, 10% out. Look for quality for our service that we give you. Don't just look that you're just a client that comes in, buys, and leaves. There's more to it. So.
I shop at 5 Below anyway.
Do you? Okay.
What do you got, Harry?
Just make sure that you do your homework, you do your due diligence. Don't take shortcuts. Hire the right people, and have some carrying power. You got to really have some funds to get a project from by the time you put down a security deposit and then, money starts, money only goes one way until, the register starts ringing or, the harvest go out the back door. So there's a lot of time where, and there's a lot of cost overruns, unforeseen cost overruns in many different aspects. Be prepared to be, it's called the cannabis tax. Anytime you talk to somebody, there's a non-cannabis price and then there's a cannabis price, and I know several of these guys don't do that here. And just make sure that you're not being gouged. There's a lot of gouging, and there's, it's providing a lot of industries with opportunities and work, so everyone's busy. So keep your costs down. It's going to be this, the survival of the fittest. You have to be lean with the help of the CPAs and with the help of the right people, and just be aware of what your costs are, going in as much with your eyes wide open as possible.
Cool. We need a part 2. Okay. But from a tax and accounting perspective, I can give you a laundry list of tax saving tips. But one thing that many people don't realize is that the state of Michigan recognizes cultivation of marijuana as a farming industry, and as such, you're spending millions of dollars possibly on equipment and build out and leasehold improvements. Well, guess what? You're allowed to take a sales tax exemption for those purchases. So that can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. I work with a number of clients where I've seen that invoices come through and they spent $500,000 and they paid sales tax on all this equipment. Well, if it's used for agricultural purposes in the state of Michigan, that's exempt. The form is the 3372 form. I've filled out hundreds of them, and if you are not aware of that, please take advantage of that.
That's huge.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah,
I am too.
So
My customers use it.
Customers, yeah, probably give it to you, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hopefully
So
you'd say that.
yeah.
Very
So again, I've seen a lot of tax returns, financial statements that have the wrong positions and expenses taken. So just really, we're selling services here. So someone once told me, good service is not cheap and cheap service is not good. So.
So no 5% above cost for you
Yeah.
either. All right. All right.
10.
All right.
You got
We'll keep
Shaun.
it at 10.
Don't believe everything you hear. That's
Yeah.
my voice. No.
That's a good one.
I actually, sometimes I feel like I'm on an island. I'll just share my opinion with you guys. I really encourage entry into this space. I encourage it by anyone that wants to get involved in this space, come see me. I'll direct you on how to get involved. I think a lot of good comes out of this space, especially for our Chaldean people. Not enough of that is realized, how much good it's done for our community.
Right.
And I want to be at the forefront in expressing that it's done a lot of good for our community,
Yeah,
for the
absolutely.
professionals in our community, for everyone in our community. So I think it's great.
Beautiful.
Cool. Good.
AT, any
Very
epoxy,
good
any
advice.
epoxy tips?
Mop your floors.
Oh, man. Cool. I think we pretty much touched on everything and covered what we needed to cover. Everybody's information is going to be at the bottom of our YouTube link. You guys can find us on YouTube with Keeping Up with the Chaldeans. Just search it and you'll find the episode on there, and any information will be listed, whether it's phone numbers, links to their businesses, or how to reach them in any manner. So we've got
And everyone knows how to reach us if you need any information on any of these guys or
Yep.
girl.
Support
the community.
Yeah, support the community.
That's the
right.
number one rule. You guys support the community, and we just I want to say from my end of it, I want everyone to understand that's watching this. The pie is so big that everybody can eat. So quarreling and all that shit can be left out in this industry. You can actually make great money with it. So when somebody says to you, "Hey man, I'd be willing to give you 10% of a grow," that 10% is extremely larger than today's 10% in a regular business. You just think to yourself automatically, if they put $2 million in, you are now valued $200,000 that morning of completion. So numbers, are big, and again, don't be greedy. There's big enough pie for everybody to eat. So it was great to have all you guys on there.
Thanks
I
for
thank you
joining
guys
us.
all for
Yes.
coming on and getting prepared for this. It was a lot of fun Zoom calls and everything else. We got to see AT in Miami during all this too, so it was good. So we thank you for keeping up with the Chaldeans. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button, check us out on YouTube. We're on Facebook. You can go listen to this episode on Spotify. You can be able to listen to it through iTunes or any of the sound streaming apps out there. Thanks again, guys.
Appreciate you guys.
To the Cannabis panel team, this will be the first. We'll probably have more to come. We've got this young lady at the end coming over here with the banker, Ms. Bashi, coming on, so we'll see you guys soon with that. Signing off. Don't
Thanks
drink,
all.
don't drink and drive, smoke and fly tonight.
Yeah.